Hi everyone, my name is Nick. I'm the community manager for Shard Tabletop, and tonight I have the pleasure of being joined by Johnny Stanton IV. For those of you who aren't familiar with Johnny, Johnny is a former NFL player, owner of Crimson Herald, host of the Athletics Check podcast, TEDx speaker, and most importantly for tonight's conversation, creator of the Path of the Gridiron Barbarian subclass.
Nick, you asked me what titles I wanted to go by or like how to introduce me, and some of those were like jokingly.
No,
like,
yeah, you know,
no, then I realized as you were saying, I'm like, man, I gave you way too many.
No, it's great. I didn't even include the handsome gentleman one.
Oh man, you weren't supposed to say
that. Johnny is joining us here tonight to talk about the Path of the Gridiron subclass for one, but also kind of just all things D&D, and we're going to talk a little bit about the subclass and what Johnny's got going on coming up. And lastly, we're going to give a little bit of a demo of the Path of the Gridiron subclass in action on Shard.
It'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. I know a lot of folks have probably asked you this in the past. I don't actually know the answer to this, and so I wanted to know, how did you first get into tabletop role-playing games, or D&D specifically?
It was actually back in college. It was at a time when football wasn't really going my way. I had just gotten injured. My junior year was not going great. I wasn't sure if I was going to continue to be able to play college football, and I then found a way to transfer my comic book nerddom into D&D nerddom at my comic book shop. And ever since then, I've been trying to get whoever I know into the game.
Yeah.
I've introduced at least like 6 or 7 teammates between college and NFL to D&D, and I'm very proud of that. And hopefully I can get even more athletes, because I think that's my specialty, is to bring in, athletes. And there's actually some events this summer, San Diego Comic-Con, hopefully Gen Con. I'll be able to bring some athletes into some live play games up on stage.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that what you're doing with the Athletic Check podcast and just your work in the TTRPG space in general has been really cool to see. So that's great. So you got into D&D in college. How did you then get to the point where you were creating your own subclass to publish for the rest of the world?
The first one I ever designed was the Oath of the Executioner Oath of the Executioner Paladin, which is available on DM's Guild, and because it's available on DM's Guild, I can't use it anywhere else. And that's actually how I learned to maybe let's not put it on DM's Guild. So that's when the Path of the Gridiron made its way towards Shard, along with my own website, StantonIV.com. But if you're going to buy it on Shard. So the reason I kind of got into it in the first place was I think it was really because I wanted a subclass that matched with this sword that I had made. And I really wanted, it was an executioner sword, and I really wanted to have something that felt super thematic with it.
Yeah. So
I designed this whole subclass based on that sword. And I'm like, you know what, I can keep doing this. And actually, it wasn't even my original idea to build the Path of the Gridiron. It was Anthony Knight, who owns Uknite the Realm apparel. They make a bunch of like metal theme. He made the T-shirt that came along with the subclass. Really, that T-shirt is the whole reason why the subclass became a thing. He said it would be really cool. He came up with the design. It's like, this artwork's really cool. He does the lettering and stuff. And then he says, originally it was going to be one of the official barbarian subclasses. And he said, well, what if we made like a Path of the Gridiron subclass? And I said, cool. What would be in the Path of the Gridiron? And then he makes just like some random names. So you'll see Full-Blooded Blitz, Instinctive Blocks, Rushing Cleave as the class features. And he's like, yeah, you can design some stuff for this, right?
That's cool.
Sure. I mean, I think usually you kind of come up with the mechanics before you come up with the name, but we went totally opposite. We went name and then the mechanics, which was a fun way of building it up, because it felt very thematic, and it felt very like, okay, these are specific things. Like you don't want to make Rushing Cleave too close to Full-Blooded Blitz. Instinctive Block kind of came up like a very naturally to me. We can talk about what these mechanics actually do. But it was so funny that he had forgotten when in designing the shirt, and I obviously forgot too because I would have said something, that there's supposed to be 4 subclass mechanics that that have names, and we'd forgotten to come up for Barbarian specifically, and we forgot to come up with a capstone ability, the level 14 ability, and so that's not on the T-shirt, but it is reflected on your Shard character sheet called the Playmaker. And I was had the hardest time because all the other names of the subclass mechanics came so naturally to Anthony to come to me for the mechanics, and then I had to come up with the last one. And he gave some recommendations, but it didn't feel exactly what I wanted this capstone ability to feel like. I wanted it to feel like very like thematic, like within football, but also, you know, I kind of messed around with field general because that feels very like specific to what you're able to do with the subclass mechanic. But it didn't feel very D&D, didn't feel very fantasy. So we settled on the word playmaker. I don't know if that necessarily feels any more fantasy, but it felt good to me. It felt very like top, you know, top level. So you'll get to see playmaker in action when we have our little mini encounter.
Yeah, and it's my favorite of the features. It's the one that I think feels the most like it most encapsulates what the subclass is meant to represent. And I think that that moment of sitting around a table and actually with your friends trying to come up with a plan, so much of that falls apart. You know, 2 or 3 rounds later, everyone's out of position. You thought you were going to do things a certain way, and this feature, as folks will see, lets you kind of take that real life planning and then actually make it happen on the table.
Yeah, it really takes advantage of this subclass specifically being different than other subclasses. If you're going to make a subclass, you got to make it feel different than what's already there. You don't want to make something that already feels like the ancestral guardian or the path of the beast or anything like that. You want it to feel like, okay, you're making this for a very specific reason. And the thing that I wanted to do with this subclass was make it very mobility focused, almost like a monk, a barbarian, but also make it very as if you're like a make it the fighter subclass that I'm blanking on the name of right now. Battle Master. I wanted that specific ability to feel very Battle Master. You're you know, you're the quarterback of your team, telling your players what route to run, what play to run, and I think that ends up feeling pretty on brand when you're actually getting to play that.
And I also like it because I think a lot of people, they play Barbarian and sometimes feel shoehorned into playing the Grog Strongjaw, right?
Himbo,
exactly. Who just rushes in kind of in a very foolhardy manner. And I love the idea of someone saying, no, wait, I want to play a Barbarian that maybe has a little bit more, it's not about being book smart, but like battlefield smart, right? And can call out. I just think that's a great sort of capstone.
The amount of guys that I played with on the football field that were maybe not the best in the classroom, but incredibly smart on the field. Like that's what we're trying to get. Well, they're not high intelligence, but you know, you can have a bit of field smarts out there, you know? Yeah,
for sure.
Football IQ.
Yeah. Very cool. So one thing I wanted to ask you about is now that you've created 2 subclasses, what's your biggest, I guess, lesson or takeaway? Like not necessarily, I don't feel like you need to pick apart the 2, but like something you might do differently next time, or just a lesson that you took away, or advice that you might have for someone else if they want to design one.
Yeah, I mean, I've designed 2 that have been published so far, and then when Sync comes out, Crimson Herald's like debut premiere project, where we're combining pirates and American traditional tattoo art, kind of getting in like the sailor tattoo vibes and getting into the pirates. Yeah, there you go. You got the Sync sticker right there. That
I'm clearly a fan.
Go to synkrpg.com, sign up for the newsletter. If you want a sticker, send me a DM with the proof that you signed up.
Yeah, well, I'll have the links down below for this.
Just a quick plug.
Yeah.
But yeah, with those 2, you know, with the Executioner, I wanted something very specific that I could play. I'm actually playing an Oath of the Executioner Paladin right now. I haven't played a Gridiron Barbarian, but this one came very, you know, naturally through actually kind of merchandise and stuff. But it felt like something like, if somebody's gonna make a football subclass, why wouldn't it be me? You know, like it should be I should be the one who makes it. And then when it comes to the Sync subclasses, which we've designed 4 that will come out with release, and then we have a handful ready for stretch goals. We have some really cool ones, and really what we were trying to do and I can talk about them a little bit right now if you're okay with
please do.
We have 4 subclasses. 3 of them are pirate themed. 1 of them is tattoo themed. The 3 pirate ones is the Buccaneer Fighter, which feels very like, why wouldn't you have a pirate fighter? Like people make pirate themed fighters, but they usually do them champion or battle master or whatever. We have the Mistbreaker Ranger, which I really wanted to get a ranger that feels like a fisherman. Feels very much like you are you're going after your white whale. You're somebody who fishes out in the sea. You're the lone fisherman, and you're just like throwing harpoons and stuff and reeling it in. That's the Mistbreaker Ranger. That's kind of the vibe around the Mistbreaker Ranger. And then I wanted a bard that felt like a shantyman, like somebody who would be like bringing the vibe, the morale up in the party, which a lot of bards feel kind of self-serious, whether they're played like that or not. But I think the mechanics themselves feel very self-serious and trying to bring up this the bard as like this regal storyteller and somebody who's very well traveled and stuff, whereas the College of Tidesong bard is somebody who's just kind of like he just magically knows how to get the vibe up. He's kind of just that guy. If the guy at the party with the guitar was actually like really like adding to the party instead of subtracting,
not just playing Wonderwall, but
exactly. So what's really cool about them is that specifically they use their bardic inspiration to allow for a re-roll of people who, like, it's multiple people. You're singing a song, you continue using your action to sing the song. Everybody else is it gets an opportunity to do a re-roll if they join in on the song. And then the tattoo themed subclass is the Spellskin Wizard, and we really wanted something that felt very tattoo themed. The obvious idea was having your spellbook on your skin in the form of tattoos, but then how does that relate to the idea of tattoos in general? It felt very like you get an idea, but then you have to explore that idea. And like I said before, if you're going to make a subclass, you have to make it feel, you have to give it a good reason for existing, and you really have to explore the idea. So what we were exploring with the Spellskin subclass is the ability for a wizard to expand their spellbook outside of the bounds of parchment and paper. We wanted it to be, okay, you can expand your spellbook to somebody else and do a tattoo on them. And grant them abilities, but also grant yourself abilities by increasing your like magical network. And having like this tether that you have to the other person, and what kind of power do you get to hold over them now because your ink is on their skin. It really kind of builds into it, and it really plays with the idea of wizards that I think are very hubris. Like, I think the best wizard characters that you see on actual plays or in books and stuff are they lovingly play into their hubris. It's so great to watch. And this one is very much like you just can't help but expand your magical network and like start kind of reaching into things that you shouldn't be. So that's the Spellskin Wizard. All of them I think are super cool. I didn't even talk about it all of the Buccaneer Fighter, which is all about really just run and gun, being all out, being reckless. And you actually at later levels get a bonus to being under half health. Like, you want to get into the fight, you want to get into the fighting, soak up all the damage, because then you become even stronger when you're below half health. So there's a lot. Like, I know the original question was like advice that you have. I think it's really just got to be exploring all avenues of what that original idea does, and building the mechanics out of that, as opposed to building mechanics and seeing what kind of character comes out of it.
It sounds like kind of the way that the Path of the Gridiron happened. You know, it's rather than trying to come up with like mechanic A plus B plus C plus D, what does it equal? You start off with like, what is the fantasy that I want to like live? That, like, the Buccaneer, the guy who jumps across the ship, like, between the two ships, and is the first one to hit the deck of the enemy ship, right? Like, if you start there and then work backwards, like, I could already start to see, like, I picture a fighter that's more of like a whirling dervish kind of, you know, not the classic medieval knight sort of fantasy, but
you get something, if you want to do it mechanics driven, which I think the Path of the Gridiron Barbarian absolutely is. Like, the thing that I don't like about barbarians is that they feel too tied down in combat. Like, if you're a DM, you know the feeling of like, I've lovingly crafted this whole battle map, and now you're using a total of like 15 squares as opposed to the, you know, the 150 that makes up the whole map. Like, I don't want because everybody's worried about, you know, opportunity attacks and all that, and not having to, you know, action economy. Whereas the Gridiron Barbarian is like, screw that, I'm going to bounce around to wherever on the field I'm needed. So, you know, if it wants to be mechanics driven, just make sure it's something that that adds to it, you know, thematically.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was very excited to get to bring the Path of the Gridiron to Shard. I'm the community manager. I am not our resident modeling expert. I did have to pull in a few of our more experienced, actually, users from our community. I mean, that's what's so cool about this. I don't know if I told you this, Johnny, but like, I pulled in a couple of guys that were so excited when I mentioned this was happening. We had like a smaller little group on Shard on our Discord called the Heroes of Shard, and they're the folks I call on when there's a question that I don't know how to answer. These are the guys that have really put in work on the tabletop. And I asked one of them, I said, do you know Johnny Stanton? And like, he was like, wait, Johnny Stanton? Like, he like, as soon as I said it, he knew who you were, and was like, dude, however I can help, I want to. And so helped me build it in such a way as, you know, folks will see in a little bit. We didn't just want this to be a PDF that we slap up on the screen where you see, okay, I have an ability that says I can move up to 10. Like, we want you to use Full-Blooded Blitz, and it's going to roll the 2d6 plus 4 dice for you. It's going to remind you that, like, hey, this is bludgeoning damage, and also you can only use this when you dash. Like, we wanted it to be something. I think sometimes third-party publishers can suffer from really cool homebrew that never makes it off a PDF. That's why I'm so excited to see more folks that are coming to virtual tabletops with more interactivity.
Without saying any names, I have done my fair share of homebrewing on other virtual tabletops. That gets very frustrating when the options being given don't fit into what you're actually trying to write in. That you just end up having to compromise. And the way that the Shard character sheet works is it's so synergistic. Like, all parts of your character sheet are working together, as opposed to really being like, okay, this bonus action is going to be right here, and that might affect your initiative score or AC score, but that's not going to actually show up on other virtual tabletops. But Shard, you know, it's so modular that you guys do such a great job of allowing that to be fluid. Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, just like how we brought the Gridiron, I hope that sync will come to Shard. You know, once you all start getting, you know, getting those drafts out, we would love to help, you know, make sure that gets spread far and wide. If you want I don't know when this is coming out, but if you want an early version of some character sheets that allow you to play those 4 subclasses, the Buccaneer, the Spellskin, the Mistbreaker, and the College of Tidesong, you can play a 5th level version. I forget. 3rd or 5th, I forget exactly what it is, in our free RPG Day booklet that is coming out on June 22nd. Go to your local participating game store to get a free version of Sync called The Treasures of Deep Grotto. It's basically a sample of the book and gets you our intro adventure. Awesome. If I haven't gotten this episode out by then, shame on me. I hopefully what I'll be able to say is, hey, next week or 2 weeks from now on Free RPG Day. So that's really exciting, and we will absolutely bring that to Shard if we're able to.